Welcome to Women In. It is Tony. I'm back, and I am just pumped for my podcast guest today, and you will find out why, especially if you're a regular listener. And if you're not a regular listener, that's okay, because these podcasts live everywhere, and you can catch up. So before you listen to today's episode, here is what Women In is. It's a podcast that celebrates women in all walks of life and the individuals in their lives who are lifting them up. You're going to hear from all kinds of super cool people in my life, and they're going to share their stories to inspire others to support the extraordinary women around them. This is a space to be disruptive, forward-thinking, and change agents for humankind. It is uncensored, fun, and curiosity-driven. This is what I'm passionate about, breaking down barriers for my kids' generation. It's equal parts about my guests and the places we came into each other's lives, whether it be the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, Tony Will Coaching, or they happen to be in my family and friends circle. My guest today, I'm pulling up her bio because it vanished on me, because we do this in real time. We're flawed. Or not real time, it's not live, but Melyssa Jaskiewicz. She is the founder of Leveling the Fields, and she's passionate about using sports to shape the next generation of female leaders. Through her nonprofit, she's committed to increasing girls' participation in athletics, believing that confidence, teamwork, and resilience gained from sports are key to developing leadership skills. With over 20 years of experience, she also serves as the VP of Sales at Sideline Sports, combining her love for tech and sports. Melyssa was raised with her two younger sisters just outside of Washington, D.C., and is now based in Charleston, South Carolina. She enjoys life with her husband and two kids, Emery 14 and Vinny 12, cheering at lacrosse games and waking up early for cross-country meets. Melyssa, hi.
Hi.
Welcome. I am so excited. So I was telling Melyssa off air, and you guys will hear from how we met, but it's not going to surprise you because obviously sports is weaved all throughout her bio. But she was brought up in an earlier podcast episode when author Michaela McKenzie joined me to talk about her book, The Future of Feminism in Sports. And Melyssa was the person we were talking about who launched a nonprofit after being so inspired at the National Sports Forum, which is a sports and leadership conference that is hosted all over the country. It travels each February. And we did I moderated the first Women in Sports Leadership panel, and Melyssa was there. So I'm spoiling how we met, but she was that person who's doing all this great work. So I was like, I got to get her on here, and here we are.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, her book was just, I mean, it's literally what started all of this. It's, it's fun to tell your origin story, and maybe I sound like a villain, but she's always a part of that story. So I get to talk about her all the time. And there is a line in her book where she spoke about ownership of her body and how running gave her that ownership. And that just really resonated with me because it was like, that's what we need to be teaching all women is this is yours. Like you own this. You can do, and it can do amazing things, and you have complete control over it. And so I just really loved that. And I loved everything that she was doing. And I literally started reading her book on the flight home and got a good part in, put down the book, and then mapped this whole baby out. So it was, she was really the inspiration for all of it.
Oh, I love it. Mac is she's become a friend, and her book is fantastic. But before we dive, I want to know what you're going to talk about your baby there, not your two kiddos. Well, we can talk about them too, but this baby. I kind of let the cat out of the bag, but how did we meet?
So I think that we met by the elevator. We met by the elevator in Pittsburgh. I remember because I had seen you do another session and I was so excited, and I came up to you and I was like, hi, I'm Melyssa. I was so pumped to meet you. And then watching you do, the panel up there and it being, it's so powerful, especially for all of us women in the room. That was really awesome. And then we got to hang out a little bit that night at the book signing, and that's where I got my super selfie of the two of us making funny faces. But yeah, and National Sports Forum is a big part of my life and has been really amazing, I guess, block of, foundation of all these really cool people and cool friendships that I've made over the years. So it's really cool that that's where we met.
Yeah, yeah, that was such a, I would say for me, that day was a turning point for women in sports.
I
I could
agree.
feel it.
Yeah.
I could feel it not just by moderating that panel, because that conference, which is a fabulous conference for any of you who work in sports who's listening to this, I highly attend that you go, whether you're on the vendor side, whether you work in sports, whether you're interested in working in sports.
Yeah.
I encourage you to go to this conference. The next one's in Boston. I think it starts February 23rd this year. And I happen to sit on the steering committee. And I'm not saying that because I'm on the steering committee. I was going to that conference long before.
Mhm.
What I love about the sports forum, I started going 10 years ago. And I didn't notice it back then because I had so many competing priorities at the time. But it was heavily male dominated, as is sports, right? 88% of professional sports is male dominated. And so I was like, wow, I want to make change in this space and have a stage for more women. So the conference has been going on since 1996, and the panel that I hosted was the first ones ever in almost 30 years that was all women on that stage. And I felt that turning point. And then later we had the networking event, and where Michaela was on the panel, but she also did a book signing, and that the energy in that room, Melyssa, wasn't it crazy?
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so nice to see, kind of some of the older heads helping, some of these younger girls. And I think that that's what was really fun to watch, is because you had senior executives in that room, and you had the young ones kind of coming up, and we're kind of on the tail end of that. But it was nice to be able to walk into a room and have these younger women, girls in their 20s and maybe early 30s, see us and think like, oh, okay, like I'm not alone. They've got me. And for, the more senior people in the room to talk about, hey, like, call me if you need me. Like, I've got you, like mentoring this next generation and just kind of showing them like, hey, we're all here. We've got you. You can do this, and you're not by yourself, because a lot of those women are coming from internal teams of predominantly men. So it was just really cool to have all those women in the room and just kind of be talking about everything that you introduced on stage and that Mac was trying to cover. So it was a really cool event.
Yeah, and you walk out of you just said it. You literally cracked the book on the plane. You're reading it. You're motivated. What came out of this? Tell everyone, because I already know the answer, but I want you to have this moment to like share this because it gives me chills. Like, you took action, and that's fucking awesome. So tell us what you did.
Thanks. Yeah, I tend to be very action oriented. It drives me nuts when people have a problem and they don't have a solution and they just want to talk about the problem. It drives me bananas. But yeah, I mean, I was reading her book and I'm like, well, wait, this is an issue. I'm like, so we can keep talking about it or we can do something about it. And one of the stats that came out was 24% of women are at the C-suite level, right? So at that level, only 24% are women. So very low. Obviously, we need to work on that because we make up 50% of the population. So 51 maybe. But what was really fascinating was that 94% of those women played sports coming up. So what does that mean? That means that if we want to change it here, we have to change it here. So we have to start at the beginning. We have to feed that filter, feed that pipeline, get more girls into sports to give them that skill set, to give them that pathway to get to those leadership roles. And what a more amazing, avenue of sports to be able to do that. And that was kind of the catalyst for all of this. What was really bizarre was I was very focused on the leadership aspect of all of this. Mm-hmm. And once we opened that data door, it was just flowing. There's 2 amazing data sources out there, and they are just pumping out information. And all of a sudden we realized, well, wait a minute, girls that are athletic and playing sports have a higher high school graduation rate. They have a lower rate of teen pregnancy. They have a lower rate of ending up in a domestic violent relationship or marriage. They have a higher likelihood of going to college. And the stats were like, oh, wow. Like, okay, we were talking about leadership, but look at all these other amazing things that we can check off just by getting girls into sports. And it was, the problem really is that youth sports today are, becoming a very big moneymaker. And, there's a good and a bad side of that. But my son plays lacrosse and he plays travel lacrosse. And the amount of money that we laid out just last summer for him to play was very, very high. And we're doing fine. And it was still a hit. So now if you've got families, especially in South Carolina where I live now, you've got a lot of families living in, rural and very, low income areas. And so you put a, $5,000-$6,000 price tag on a travel sport, that's not happening. I mean, these people are struggling to get, new shoes and clothes, for their children. So I was like, all right, how do we fix this? How do we take out those barriers? How do we remove that money barrier? And so that's what we're on a mission to do. We have put together several different programs, and we've got a 12-week after school program designed just for elementary school girls. We go on site. We do 12 weeks. We cover 3 different sports, getting the fundamentals down. And we do 3 more sports in the spring. So by the end of a year, these girls have gone through 6 sports. There's an empowerment curriculum that's going along with them. We're talking about positive self-talk. We're talking about positive body imaging. We're talking about ownership of your body, teamwork, how to fail, how to, get back up after you've been knocked down. And so with all these things, the idea is that these girls are going to finish that year and either say, hey, I want to do that again. Or you could have a girl stand up and say, you know what, of those 6 sports, I really liked lacrosse, or I really liked softball. And then the idea is to follow up and get these girls into rec leagues and outfit them completely, get them some cleats, get them a ball, get them a backpack, everything they need for that sport, and cover, their registration fee, any additional stuff. And then going even beyond that, we've got some things in place where we're going to be actually transporting them. So if there's a family that can't get their kid to practice, we're going to, put some things in place to help that. So yeah, I mean, that's the plan. We're super pumped. We want to be in 39 Title I schools by the end of 2026, running the full 12-week program.
I have so many questions, follow-up questions, writing them all down feverishly.
Hurry on.
Okay, so you mentioned, let's start with the 6 sports. Is it always the same 6 sports? Because you said lacrosse and softball. What are the other 4?
Sure, yeah. So we've designed it to be reverse of what the high school's doing to increase our chances of getting help from the high school coaches and the seniors, the varsity seniors, in terms of helping with assistant coaching. So for our pilot program, the principal actually asked, can you please mirror what's offered at the high school? So we said, yeah, sure. So right now the focus is on what's available to girls in our county. So the fall program will be soccer, lacrosse, and softball.
Got it.
And the spring will be basketball, volleyball, tennis.
Very
and then
good.
we want to expand on those. We're going to try and, pace ourselves so that we can really get these sports down, equipment, coaching, all of that jazz. But we do plan to add on field hockey, girls rugby. We've talked about, flag football. So there's no real limit, but we want to kind of, make sure that we're not getting ahead of ourselves and getting these set in place and then adding more.
Okay, so how is this, let me start back. Like Girls on the Run, have you heard of Girls on the Run? Yeah.
Very familiar with them, yeah.
Okay, so is it because that age range I think is like third and fourth grade. What age brackets are you working, or what grades?
Yeah. So right now we're starting with third through fifth grade.
Okay.
And that'll be our focus for the next 24 months. That'll be our focus.
Got it.
After that, we're going to kind of gauge it, and we're going to see through engagement, could we be able to take on the second graders? Is there maybe enough kids where we can start to do 2 tracks where you've got second and third graders, and then you've got fourth and fifth graders, and we're running 2 identical programs. So we're trying to build everything for scale. And we're going to kind of let these first 2 years give us the data to say, okay, this worked here, but maybe in this school we need to expand it. Maybe in this school we need to do a duplicate program. So we're going to we're going to let it guide us in terms of, how we weave and how we grow.
Tell me about, okay, because you were hitting on a lot of the research, and you're absolutely right. The latest research I read is 51% of the global population is women. So, and you talked about the areas where, women, young girls in sports, less likelihood of being in a domestic abuse relationship. I mean, all the statistics that support, why sports is so positive for young girls. Talk to me. I have a separate passion around fitness and nutrition, and I live alcohol free. So is that one of those things like that nutrition, or, because in schools, those are really impressionable ages. Like I remember being that age and being like Nancy Reagan being like, this is your brain on drugs.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So is that stuff touched on too? Like, and I don't know what the stats are in that, like if young girl athletes, because of being in control of their body, being empowered, and then connecting that to substance use and not using it, and teaching them, building a bridge to that story.
Yeah, there's definitely some statistics on the likelihood. Obviously, the likelihood goes down in terms of addiction and alcohol abuse when you have an athlete versus a non-athlete. But the other thing is there's a lot of data that talks to setting up for lifelong health, right? So if you look at the, obesity in America and the toll that it's taking on so many assets of what we're doing out there, this speaks to that as well. So girls that play sports coming up, lower likelihood of, dealing with obesity in adulthood, and a higher likelihood of just being more conscious and more healthy. So if you look at people, I mean, we both, know we played sports coming up, and, those girls are out running and exercising. And the older that we get, the more important it gets. And I just read a study the other day about relating weightlifting to skin, and how, the headline said, for glowing skin, lift weights. Mm-hmm. And it was a fascinating article. But there is correlation. There is data to back that up. The Women's Sports Foundation, Billie Jean King's organization, I kid you not, like last week put out an 80-page study on the relationship between, female sports and leadership. I mean, it was as if someone handed it to us on a silver platter. But they do speak about, I'm not sure in that report, I'm still reading the entire thing, but in some of the other literature that they've put out, they do talk about alcohol and drug abuse, and there is definitely a correlation. You just know, I think that if you start to push your body and see what it can do, you start to respect it more. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you respect your body more, you're less likely to put poison in it. And you're more likely to put, things that are actually going to help you. We have a thing, I literally have a sticker on our fridge that says, everything you eat is either feeding disease or fighting it. Mm-hmm. So, and you're just raising that conscious level. I mean, we are going to be talking about food in many of the empowerment sections of our program, and talking about nutrition, and, if you want to do good, eat good, and a lot of those pieces, recognizing that we do have to be careful. I mean, you've got, kids in certain areas that they don't have access.
Right.
And so we do have to be conscious of that, and not coming on too strong or anything like that. But I think generally speaking, we are definitely touching on all of those factors.
Yeah. So you and I are a lot alike, not just in what we do for a living or working in sports, and but we are two women that when we see a problem, we're like, all right, we're going to find a solution, and then we do it.
Yeah.
You got off that airplane, you're like, I am launching this nonprofit. That was just in February. Right now, as we
Yep.
record this, we're at the beginning of October.
Yeah.
So you've done and a fuck ton of work in a very short period of time.
Yeah, it's insane.
So talk about the how, and not, I mean, because clearly you're internally motivated and you are action oriented, as you pointed out early on. But what were the steps you took? Because I'm hoping as people listen to this, and if they want to do any type of whatever in their community,
Yeah.
but maybe they want to do something in their community to similar to what you're doing with girls. So what was the
Yeah.
how? What were your first steps?
Um, Gosh, that's a great question. So we formed a nonprofit. We went online and we, was very fortunate. I found, three other women that were on board and we're like, all right, we're going to help you. And I said, all right, great. And one of them, I call her my unicorn, because she was an empty nester who had nonprofit experience. And so she had time and experience. I was like, you're a unicorn. And her name's Kristen, and she's just been, I call her the Swiss Army knife. But, the two of us sat down and we actually filled out all the IRS paperwork and we, did everything, and we followed the checklist and set up our nonprofit. And then after that, it was really about processes and trying to figure out, like, what do we want to do and what's our goal, and how we kind of just kept coming back to that, and also keeping in mind that we wanted it to be successful. So we wanted to make sure that we were starting in a way that was laying a good foundation, but was also very executable. We didn't want to bite off more than we can chew. We wanted to be able to scale. So I think that I call them my influence meetings. So each week I meet with one person that is influential, someone that we feel could push the organization forward, could help us with funding, could be, a super cheerleader or a major connector. So each week I meet with somebody like that. And to be totally honest and transparent, I feel as if there's this like red carpet, like unrolling in front of us.
Yeah.
And it just like keeps unrolling, and we keep walking and it just keeps unrolling. And it's like these people just keep popping up in our path that are just perfect. And it's been at every single sign, there's been like, yep, okay, we're on the right path. Yep, we're on the right path. We're meeting the right people. We've been very fortunate to get major players involved early. I've been, kind of on a tear, reaching out to everyone and anyone and everyone, and getting it out there and creating awareness. And the other thing I would recommend to anyone else who wants to kind of get, out there and help is learning what other nonprofits are around, because there's so many people doing so many good things, and it's a lot easier to join an existing organization and help push them forward rather than doing what we did and creating it from scratch. Now, in this case, there was no one doing this. So that's, and we did look into that. However, we have aligned ourselves with, 4 or 5 other nonprofits, and we're really leaning on them to learn about the relationships that they're putting together with the counties and, the government and things of that nature. And we're getting a lot of guidance and a lot of support, which has been really amazing.
So when you said we, there were 4 of you, 4 women?
Yes.
Okay. And I would love for you to share their names, and then I beyond that, then is that your board of directors, or do you have a board of directors? So
we do. Yeah, there's 3 of us on the board. It's myself, Paige, and Amanda. And we joke that I'm not a rule follower. And Amanda is.
Another thing we have in common.
Yeah, that gets me in trouble. I'll kind of look at it. I'm like, well, if we wiggle to the left or we wiggle to the right, we can get right around that barrier. So, And Amanda keeps me on point. She, makes sure that we're taking all of our notes and minutes and going back and Paige is, one of my closest friends in the whole wide world. And she is also one of the smartest people I've ever met. And she has a way of bringing me right back in when I flare out and, kind of keeping me focused and keeping me reining me back in when I need to be. And one of the few people that can be incredibly blunt and honest with me. And I don't know what I would do without her. So luckily, and thank goodness, I've got them as my board. And we've got, our amazing volunteer in Kristen. And we just recently grabbed a woman named Kelsey, who is going to come on to help lead our programs. And her background she's another unicorn. I don't know how we figured. I mean, I couldn't have mapped her background out better. Played D1 lacrosse, ended up as a PE teacher, then coached at the collegiate level, then started her own lacrosse program. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been really, really lucky just to have, these incredibly, incredibly bright people on board and helping us and kind of doing it together. I like collaborating. I like other people's opinions, and I like when people push back on me. It makes me think differently. And so I keep telling all of them, keep pushing back on me. I might get mad right away. I go, but I'm going to respect it. And I need it because it's going to elevate my thinking. It's going to elevate the organization. And we all have the same mission.
Yeah. Yeah. We are a lot alike. I too, I so respect when done respectfully.
Yes.
To push back on me. I think the best way to put it is devil's advocate, because I too, I need to be reined in a little bit sometimes because I get super passionate and I'm an executor. Sometimes it's called impulsive, and that's okay because we get shit done. But there are very few people in my life who can tell me like it is, and not because I think it's just, I don't try to be intimidating, but I can come off that way. And so my husband is one of those people. I'm like, Josh, just tell me, because I need to know. He's also the person, if you recall, I think I said I was nervous before I moderated that super panel. And I called him. I'm like, I'm actually really nervous. And he's like, just be Tony. So for women like you and I, Melyssa, who are, just doing stuff and we might make mistakes and we might, I don't know, make a misstep here and there, or we crawl through a loophole maybe we shouldn't have crawled through. But we're making change, and these other women who are with you doing this and lifting them up, and then we go to the next generation. I mean, you are truly doing the work on exactly why I launched this podcast for the next generation, because you and I are both raising the next generation.
Yeah. I mean, watching what they're, dealing with and my daughter's a freshman in high school, and, the access, the content that's coming at them. I mean, you just have to be that much more resilient and that much stronger to be able to manage that. And I think that, I know in your original, questioning you sent over, it's like, you said, what are you passionate about? And, one of the things I'm really passionate about is the parent-child relationship. And it's such a delicate one, and making sure that it's an open pathway of communication. But also making sure that you don't want to fall into the friend role, but you don't want to be, but you're not the dictator. And it's fascinating to kind of watch bobbing and weaving that. And I'm very, very fortunate that my father was, basically our parenting coach, and has been, read every single book on parenting because I gave him a run, but now knows just so much and is so helpful and has really kind of helped me, dealing with how to combat those situations, how to have those conversations, and just being this open and honest and coming back to, what is most important, what do we care about, what are we doing out there in the world. But yeah, I'm super excited to be able to bring all of this to all these girls. And when we were meeting with some of the other nonprofits, some of them are very, very specific on what they're doing to help communities. And I'm already kind of seeing it forward, where if we've got all these coaches and we're in all these schools, we're going to have a pathway to help even more. So if I have one of my coaches come back to me and say, hey, there's a girl in my program, something's not right here. Either I'm maybe they're picking up that she's not getting enough nutrition at home, or maybe there's an abuse situation, and they can bring that to me and we can say, okay, now we have the information. I'm going to now go to my 5 other, executive directors and say, hey, you, this is what you focus on. What do we do here? How can we help? And then put them in touch. And so now you're connecting and you're helping on an even greater level, because now we're trying to say, okay, there's a problem here. Over here is the solution, or someone that knows potentially how to fix it. But how do we connect those people? And so we're creating those avenues and creating that pathway to be able to help even more people. So that I'm really excited about as well, just being able to connect.
So I'm going to ask you a question I get all the time. Mm-hmm. So you work full time, which we haven't even talked about Sideline Sports yet, but yeah. You work full time. You've launched this nonprofit. You're a mom of 2 teens, and you're a wife. Mm-hmm. How do you do it all? What is your secret?
I think you just stop sleeping at a certain point, and you just No,
I have to get 7 to 9 hours a night, or I'm
No, I'm in bed by 9. Today is actually my anniversary. My husband and I are 16 years today. Congrats. We were together 4 years prior to that, so officially 20. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's just, there's just times when I can sit down and get more work done. It's just about efficiency and organized. I have to be incredibly organized. I mean, it is, my husband gives me a hard time because he'll say, hey, what time's that cross country meet? And I look at him and he immediately goes, I know, check the calendar. So I put everything, I'm very, tech forward. Obviously I work in sports tech. So I have developed systems, which I'm sure you have too.
Oh yeah.
If I don't have my systems, I fall apart. So I have systems in place that keep me on track, that keep me moving and keep me incredibly efficient. And I think that the same is to be said for everyone. I can't say that my system is going to work for somebody else, but figure out your system. Figure out what it is to keep yourself organized. And I go in, taking the time to plan. You want to execute, especially people like us. You want to execute. So just give me the list. I'm going to go. But taking that extra 2 hours to say, okay, what is the highest priority here? Not what's quickest and easiest. What's the highest priority? And then putting that and shuffling things around to say, okay. And obviously, every yes is a no to something else. So, there's times where I'm up at 7 and working on a Saturday. And by 2:00 I'm done. And then we, go out and we do other stuff. And I have to check myself and say, okay, I need a full day away from the computer because my eyes are, have had it. And then those are the days, that we go night fishing at the beach, and maybe I do laundry while I watch, John Mulaney. So I think just being able to check yourself and make sure that you don't burn out, and finding those pockets of time to say, I'm just going to sit and do nothing for a couple hours, and that's going to be fine. And that's hard to do when you have a 14-page to-do list and you want to do it. I'm like so excited about everything I'm working on right now. But I think just making sure that you're finding those pockets to do nothing and chill out and re-energize, and then being able to go full steam again.
Yeah, everything that you just said is spot on, and you articulated it so well, because I get asked that all the time. One of my answers is my calendar's color coded, and so I use technology. And I wouldn't say I'm tech forward. I think I'm tech average. But I mean, my calendar is color coded, but I am highly, highly efficient. Mm-hmm. So, as an example, when I get home from work, I always walk in the door and I unpack all my bags, but then I repack. And by repack, I mean it is my gym bag, and so which includes all my clothes for the next day. I get my gym clothes for the morning laid out with my tennis shoes next to it, with everything, and then I pack my lunch and my breakfast and my lunch, pack that. Like everything is packed the night before. It is sitting on in my office here on the bed, and then like literally everything,
Yeah.
everything is done. So when I get up in the morning, I literally make my coffee pots ready to rock and roll, make my coffee. I take those bags, I get out the door, I'm at the gym, and then I shower, get ready there. I mean, like, there's several steps. I literally, here's another great example for those who are like giving us examples. I literally then drive from the gym to the car wash because I live off a dirt road. I get my car washed every day, and then I drive to the office. And I mean, it is literally like, okay, how can I stack all these things? So, have you to that? So I'm so excited about this because I finally someone I can talk to about this stuff. We're so much alike.
I
Have you read the book Atomic Habits?
I have not. Someone told me about it though just recently.
Yeah, read that because what you said in there is exactly what James Clear, the author. You fall basically to your processes, and if you don't have processes in place,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to execute
I agree.
at a high level. And that's just what you said. So I encourage you to read that book because you will be like me. Yes,
Oh.
yes. Like I was like pumped.
And you know, the other thing is, and I get a little slack for this, but you know, my I've taught my kids how to cook early, and you know, when my son was 7, he was making dinner for the whole family, and you know, you get pushback on that sometimes, but both my children cook, and so everybody in the family has their night and they cook dinner, and you can cook whatever you want, and I don't care. You know, you can default to spaghetti and meatballs every now and then, but you know, you do that 2 weeks in a row, and the rest of the family is going to kind of complain a little bit. But I mean, that's how taking some of the things that are normal mom duties and trying to figure out how to streamline those, I think is really helpful. I don't enjoy cooking. So that was one of the big things for me. And I don't mind doing laundry. That it's kind of calming to me, but I do not enjoy cooking. And so that was one of the things I basically said to the kids, like, hey, I don't like doing this. I go, but we need to eat. I go, so we all need to jump in. And really seeing your household as an ecosystem, right? As you do as well, where it's like, no. We all live and work here, and this is our space. So we all need to jump in. I mean, I think I unload the dishwasher maybe once a month, if that. That is not my job. They do that. You know, and I call them my night and my morning people because my son, he pops up out of bed and he's ready to roll. My daughter, you know, very slow getting up in the morning. However, she'll stay up until like 11 or midnight. And so I can ask her like, hey, you know, unload the dishwasher, clean the kitchen. And she'll kind of look at me. She's like, I'll get to it. And she does. I come down in the morning and it's done. And she could be doing it at 10 or 11. I don't know. I'm in bed. But just figuring out, and I'm not on like, hey, got to do it right now. It's like, well, no one likes that. So you got to figure out how to find that sweet spot. And that's kind of what we've done where, you know, we can say, hey, you're on this tonight. You're on this tonight. And the rule in the house is if you cook, you don't have to clean. So that is, you know, standard. But I think that some of those things where you're just like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, and then, you know, just pushing it to somebody else. And they're not in a position to where it's too much. If it was, that'd be a different issue. But, you know, there's when they've got enough time to use, you know, Snapchat and TikTok and YouTube, you got enough time to clean too.
Amen. Okay, so I want to talk about your day job because I've been a woman in sports now for 10 years, and you are a woman in sports and tech. And so those are two very, both historically male dominated areas. So talk about what you do in your day job.
Sure.
And what it's like being a woman in that space.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. So our company is Sideline Sports, and we focus on gamification. So we go in and we actually create gamified experiences for fans. And most of the time they live in the sports team's app. So like the Bucks, they had a game last night. We do 2 different products that live inside of their app. One is called Pick 3, where it's like fantasy light. And, the fan gets to pick 3 players. They're their players for the game. And then obviously their partnership team monetizes it, where they sell sponsorship against it. And that's the space that we've been in for a very long time. And it's been fascinating to watch it evolve, and fascinating to watch kind of what's come of it. There's a lot of people that are creating games. But if you really kind of look at the development behind it, the thought that went into it, they're very shallow. Most of the stuff out there is very shallow. And so understanding what the fan needs, how the fan interacts, what they're looking for is quite the science. And that's kind of the space that we live in, is trying to figure out, what is needed. But I would say, I run the sales team there. So I'm, emailing, calling people all day, every day. And at the beginning of my career, it was very daunting when there was these male SVPs, and I was having to call, the NFL teams and MLB teams. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it was fascinating that you just alter kind of your sense of humor and your, what you're willing to do. And you have to alter when you're dealing with males versus females. If you're being a dick to a girl, that's not going to go over well. But if you're being a dick to a dude, they kind of are like, oh, okay, like she came to play. And so it's been interesting, that shift, but it's like, you have to question, like, well, why is that? Like, why do you think that that's funny? And when it's like, kind of mean and rude or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's many, many times where I'm, one of 1, 2, or 3 females in a room, if that. And you have to be, I'm also 5 feet tall. So I don't,
Yeah. I don't meet many people shorter than I, because I'm.
Yeah, I know. I was so excited when we met. I'm like, oh, she's short like me. But it's impossible to find clothes. But when so A, I'm a female. B, from the back, I look like I'm 12. And so you have to be big. You just have to find a way to be big. Find a way to control the space. My son is 12. He's got a pretty big squad. And I said to him one day, I go, your friend's scared of me? And he paused and he looked at me and goes, a little. I go, perfect. That's a perfect amount. That's what I was going for. But it is, you have to be very bold, and you have to kind of come into the room swinging and let everybody know, like, you're not going to be pushed around. And you have to really kind of double down on that as a female. Because you're not, there's gentlemen that will look right over me and they're like, you're someone's assistant or secretary. I'm not talking to you. And that happens on the regular. I had an old boss who called me sweetie. And I'm like, and finally, I got the nerve up to say, can you stop doing that? And he was like, oh, but it's a term of endearment. You're like my daughter. And I'm like, well, Kirk is 3 years younger than me, and you don't have a fun name for him. So what now? And it didn't quite stop, but I didn't work there very long. But there's not a female I've met yet that's our age or around it that hasn't dealt with an extreme situation or a minorly extreme situation.
Yeah.
And that just got to stop.
How do you? So what I'm hearing you say is you play big, and take up space, and I say that in the best way, in a complimentary way, because that's how I would describe my style. But I see so many women make themselves small, and part of, I'm doing this work to lift up kids, our next generation, the kids that we're raising. But I also want to inspire women that are, middle-aged, whatever, 20s, wherever they're at, 50s, 60s, 70s, to like let those peacock feathers out, ladies. Yes. Spread them. And that's why I use peacock, because they take up space.
Space, yeah.
So
Yeah.
what would your advice be? Because I keep thinking it's personality driven a little bit, like that's just your and I's personalities.
Yeah.
But what is your advice to someone that's like, man, I want my peacock feathers out. I want to take some space up.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's easier when you've got a big personality. It definitely is. I mean, that's why people, like us that's why I ended up in sales is, I've yet to meet a stranger. I mean, it drives, my husband insane. I talk to everyone. But I think that even with a introverted personality, even with a more wallflower type person, you can still be big. You can still be powerful because I mean, it even comes down to how you physically stand. I mean, are you standing with your shoulders back and your head up? Because a lot of times when you roll your shoulders back, your chest comes out. And so, people that are busty will feel like, oh, I'm sticking my boobs out. It's like, no, like stand up, like it's own your body, own it and stand up and don't shrivel down, stand up tall. I mean, even like standing with if you watch how people stand and their legs, how they are. So you basically want to find someone in the room that is doing what you wish you were doing and watch and say like, okay, how are they talking to people? I mean, each industry is going to be different, right? We're in sports. We know that world very, very well. I can talk sports. I can talk with all these people. I know the business side of sports incredibly well. I can't always tell you who the starting quarterback is, but I know I definitely know who their main sponsor is and what name's on the side of their stadium. So that's know your stuff, know your space, and know that you know it. Own that you know it. You are so much smarter than you think because you know your stuff. You don't know everyone else's stuff, and that's fine. But every woman out there knows her stuff, whatever that may be. So own your knowledge, own what you know well, and be totally fine that you don't know the other stuff. That's okay. You don't have to know everything. Be curious, be inquisitive. I'll ask. I was on the phone with someone the other day and he used the acronym that I didn't know. Yeah. And the first time I was like, okay. And I nodded my head. And the second time he used it, I stopped him. I said, hey, forgive me. What does that acronym mean? And he told me. I said, oh, that makes sense. And we just kept going. That's not my world. He was a finance guy. I'm a sports person. And sales, KPIs. I know all that stuff. But he had used specifically a financial term. And so I stopped him and I asked him what that meant. And that didn't make me look stupid. That made me look curious. And ask questions. There is nothing that drives me more crazy than people that don't ask questions. But honestly, I think that, it is about, there's a little bit of fake it till you make it. It's going to be uncomfortable. It is going to be uncomfortable. And you have to just kind of push through that. And, down an extra Celsius and go in, get a little more caffeine that day and just kick it. But, and also just finding another woman to kind of stand next to. I mean, there's many times when, one of us at NSF, at these conferences, you find another woman and stand next to them. Most women will get it very quickly and will bring you into the conversation. And if they don't, you're standing next to the wrong woman. Go find someone else. Yeah. But yeah, I would just say, empowering oneself. I read a lot of, personal development and business development books. And there's some of it's repetitive, but there's a lot of it that you'll start reading and you'll read one line and it just hits you, right in the face. Years ago.
Recommend a book you would recommend that?
Gosh, I've got a lot. Some of them are a little bit out there.
It's okay. I read out there.
Yeah. One of the books that I read that really changed my perspective was a book by Craig Beck, and it's out there. I am not going to lie. It is out there, but it's a manifestation. It's called Manifestation Magic or something like that. It was a silly title. But he talked a lot about overcoming fear in the book. And he said, well, since we all fear death, let's start there.
I
And
love that.
I was like, oh, here we go. Okay.
Well, Craig Beck wrote Alcohol Lied to Me, by the way, too.
You know him.
I do.
I'm a huge Beck fan. Huge fan.
He read that. I read that book years ago, and I loved his viewpoint on it because he was, I think he got his sommelier, and then he was super into wine. And then he was like, what bullshit. And the way he wrote about it, it was so like, I value people that are just super down to earth and transparent and flawed and all the things. And he called himself on his own shit. I respect that. So I like yes, I know who Craig is. And I like his way of thinking. Yes. Most people do fear death. And let's start there. I actually have, my husband calls it my death calendar. I'm pointing to it. And it's from 4K weeks. So 4 and then K. And what it is, it's like you choose. Do you want to live to be 88, 100, or 125? I picked 100. And so every Sunday you go on there and you blot out a box. And so what it does is it allows you to see like what decisions you're making. And you said this earlier, and where you're going to spend your time. Huh. And he goes, there's Tony and her death calendar. But it's where I spend time. And it's a longevity decision. I want to live to be 100. So am I making choices today that are going to get me there?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so because I don't fear death, but I tell you, I don't want my last 10 years to be me laying in a lazy boy with a bedpan shoved under my ass.
Absolutely not.
Right? Yep. So anyways, I got off a little bit on a soapbox there, but yeah, I love Craig Beck.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. And I actually, so I do better with audiobooks. So I actually listened to his full series, the 7-book series. They're short, but the 7-book series. I listened to the full series 3 times over the course of 5 years. And each time I would come back to it. And finally, by the last time, I was ready to do all the exercises that he laid out in the end of the book. And one of them was a gratitude journal. And so I actually did an entire year. I didn't miss a day of that gratitude journal. And I think that at the time I was really focusing on changing the subconscious mind. And that was a fantastic exercise to do that. And I think that also really opens your eyes to empowerment, because you start to see what's important and you start to kind of gravitate towards, you don't care as much about some of the pieces that maybe would have prevented you from doing things in the past.
I'm a big gratitude journaler. So I have a 5-year journal set. It's from Rifle Paper. And so each year, so there's 5 journals and each one has a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm on year 2. And so what I do is I gratitude journal every day, almost every day. And 3 things I'm grateful for, wins or gratitudes. And then I manifest, I write for tomorrow. What do I think 3 things that are going to be? And literally it takes me anywhere from 2 minutes to 5 minutes. Yeah. Sometimes it's harder than others because maybe I'm not in the best headspace that day, but it helps me get back to that. And we've been talking a lot about research shows. So research shows this gratitude practice huge. So, oh my God, how are we not sisters? Maybe we are. I don't know.
Maybe we are. Yeah. You know, I that was a big thing for me. And I even there was days when I would write in my calendar, like, I'm grateful for my kitchen table. Yeah. But I like it. It's pretty and it makes me happy because, you know, we bought it on sale and I love a good deal. And I just, you know, it changes you because you start to go through the day thinking, ooh, what am I going to write down tonight?
Yes.
And that's the whole idea. It's like, I'm grateful for the parking space that I got and, you know, the front of Publix that day. I'm grateful for this sunset that I get to enjoy on my ride into work. There's just so many things when you start to see the world through that lens. And I've got 2 favorite quotes. Well, I have a bunch, but 2 recently that have been very favorites. One is, change the way you see the world and the world you see will change. And then the other one is, whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. And that one doesn't sit well with a lot of people.
I love it.
But
totally get it.
It's true. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot to be said about learning who you are and learning how identifying the things in your mindset that maybe are not positive, and doubling down on trying to figure out how to fix them. There's a lot of people out there that are unhappy, and there's a lot of people that, want, like, on the surface, they want to change or they want to feel better, but they're not really willing to do the work. It takes work. If you want to change something, especially your mindset or yourself or your body, it's work. And if you want it bad enough, it's worth it. But a lot of people don't, and so they'll say, oh, yeah, I want to change, but they don't really want to change. But so I think that, when it's giving advice and things of that nature, finding something that makes it worth it. Finding something in you that says, maybe I don't want to change for myself, but when I look at my 2 children and I think to myself, like, I don't want them spending their 40s and 50s taking care of me. I don't want that. I refuse, actually. I refuse. And so I'm not going to let that happen. So therefore, that's why I eat a little bit better. I maybe go to the gym one more time. So if you have to just find that thing that gives you that motivation, gives you the, okay, this is worth it. And now if you can't do it for yourself, find someone else to do it for.
Wow. Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. We could talk forever. So I have 2 last questions. One, are you going to be at National Sports Forum in Boston?
Yes.
Okay,
I already booked my hotel.
Yeah. We're going to need to get coffee while we're there. So let's plan that. Would love to do that. And then, where can people find you, related to all the things you've shared today?
Yeah, sure. I'm very, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So definitely, anyone reach out, connect with me there. My company is Sideline Sports, so it's playsidelinesports.com, and our nonprofit is Leveling the Fields with an S .org. And so, yeah, any of those places, that's where, all my information is on each one of those sites. I respond to LinkedIn messages very quickly. I'm on there every day, except for Sundays, because I force myself to unplug. But yeah, no, and I love connecting. We're always, I love meeting people. I love hearing stories. And we're always looking for other passionate people to help drive our mission forward. So anyone and everyone who wants and believes in that, we'd love to hear from them.
So awesome. Yes, please reach out to Melyssa. Melyssa, thank you so much. This was
Thank you, Tony. This is super fun.
Fantastic. And if you're looking to connect with me, I'm not hard to find either. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook at Tony Lentini Will. I'm on Instagram at I'm Tony Will. And then, of course, KalamazooWings.com, mindfulnesselevated.com, TonyWillCoaching.com. Until next time, I hope everyone has a great day.